Admiral George Harris stood at the wide window of the Lunar Peace Center, his weathered hands clasped tightly behind his back. Earth hung in the darkness before him, a blue jewel that now faced its greatest threat. He watched as the Krell-Nor delegation marched toward their shuttle, their scaled skin reflecting the harsh artificial light. 6 years of talks, 6 years of hope, all ended in less than 3 hours. "They can't be serious," said Lisa Wright, stepping beside him. As Earth's lead ambassador, she had spent more time with the aliens than anyone else. Her voice was steady, but Harris could see the fear in her eyes. 30% of our oceans, exclusive rights to the asteroid belt. These aren't terms for peace. These are demands for slow surrender. Harris nodded. They never wanted peace. They wanted to see if we would give up without a fight. The last of the Krell-Nor delegates entered their craft. Sub-Commander Zextur, their leader, turned and fixed Harris with all 4 of its eyes. The universal translator clipped to Harris's uniform buzzed to life. "We will return in 7 of your Earth days for your answer," the alien's voice crackled, though there is only one acceptable response. Surrender the resources or face extinction. The shuttle door sealed shut. No goodbyes. No diplomatic niceties. "Send the coded message to the Joint Chiefs," Harris said to his aide. "Use the words, 'exactly as we planned. The skies have darkened.'" Lisa turned to him, her face pale. "So that's it? We're going to war against a species that crossed the stars to get here? Their smallest ships could destroy our largest cities." "No," Harris said. "Not war. Something else." 350,000 kilometers away, deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Alan Peters was finishing his evening coffee when the secure phone rang. Only 3 people had this number. He grabbed it on the first ring. Peters. The voice on the other end was calm, methodical. "The skies have darkened." The cup slipped from Peters' hand, shattering on the floor. He didn't notice. Understood. His mouth felt dry. "How long?" 7 days. The line went dead. Peters looked around his office, suddenly seeing it with new eyes. The framed photos of his family, the worn books on theoretical physics, the half-completed letter to the Nobel Committee explaining why his work was being withdrawn from consideration. He pressed his palm against the hidden scanner beneath his desk. The back wall slid open, revealing a narrow elevator. As he stepped inside, Peters thought about what he was about to do. Project Lazarus had never been meant for this. The technology was too unpredictable, the consequences too vast. But extinction left no room for caution. In Washington, D.C., the Joint Chiefs gathered in the underground Situation Room. The large screen showed satellite images of the Krell-Nor fleet. 18 major vessels and 9 smaller crafts now positioning themselves for what looked like a planetary blockade. General Ben Williams pointed to the largest ship. "Their mothership has energy readings we can't even classify. If they decide to attack, our conventional defenses will barely slow them down." "Then we don't fight conventionally," said Defense Secretary Grace Morris. She nodded to a young officer who distributed sealed folders. "What I'm about to share is classified beyond top secret. Operation Lazarus is now active." In Nevada, beneath the dry lake bed of a former nuclear test site, Dr. Samantha Kelly watched the data scroll across her screen. Her team of 12 scientists worked silently around her, calibrating equipment that most of the world's scientific community believed was theoretically impossible. The heavy blast doors opened. Dr. Peters entered, followed by General Frank Martinez. "It's happening, isn't it?" Kelly asked, though she already knew the answer. Peters nodded. 7 days. Kelly's hands trembled slightly as she called up the core schematics. "The Lazarus Protocol was never meant to be weaponized. We don't fully understand what happens when we tear the fabric of causality." "What we understand," Martinez replied, "is that in 5 days, those ships will begin systematic bombardment of our cities. Your concerns are noted, Doctor. Now make it work." Kelly looked at the quantum matrix, the heart of the Lazarus system. Originally designed to create localized time dilation for medical applications, a way to slow critical injuries until treatment could be administered, it had shown strange properties during testing. properties that defied the known laws of physics. We'll need to create 3 synchronized fields, Peters said, studying the data. The math suggests that's the minimum needed to affect objects in orbit, and the maximum disruption we can risk, without affecting Earth itself, Kelly added. In orbit, the International Space Station Artemis had been quietly modified over the past year. Commander Olivia Ross knew nothing about Project Lazarus, but she understood her new orders. The station's scientific equipment now tracked every movement of the alien fleet. Energy spike from the mothership, reported her sensor officer, Paul Clark. Similar to the pattern before they sent their delegation to the moon. Ross frowned. They're talking to someone. Get me a directional fix. The communications array reoriented. After several minutes, Clark looked up in surprise. It's not aimed at the moon or Earth. They're sending a high-powered transmission toward the outer solar system. They're calling for reinforcements, Ross said quietly. Tell Houston we may have less time than we thought. Across Earth, militaries mobilized in a carefully orchestrated show of conventional resistance. Fighter jets took to the skies. Missile silos opened. Naval vessels deployed from their ports. It was all for show. A desperate act meant to convince the Krellnor that humanity planned to fight with its limited technology, while the real plan developed in secret. In the White House Oval Office, President Eleanor Powell prepared to address the nation. Her speech, writers had labored over every word, crafting a message that would prepare humanity for possible attack without revealing the Lazarus Protocol. How do I give them hope? She asked Harris, who had just returned from the moon. When I can't tell them our actual plan? Tell them what humans have always needed to hear in dark times, Harris replied. That we've faced extinction before. That we've survived ice ages and plagues and our own terrible weapons. That humanity doesn't surrender. Powell nodded, her resolve strengthening. In minutes, she would speak to billions of frightened people. In 7 days, those people would either witness humanity's greatest triumph or its final defeat. As night fell over the Rocky Mountains, Peters looked at the prototype field generator. Small enough to fit in a submarine or underground bunker, yet powerful enough to alter reality itself. The ultimate weapon, born from a medical breakthrough. Begin final preparations, he told his team. We have 6 days to save the world. Above them, the stars shone cold and distant. Among them, the Krellnor fleet waited, unaware that humanity was about to change the rules of existence itself. Dr. Samantha Kelly had not slept in 36 hours. The Nevada facility hummed around her, the sound of the quantum matrix growing louder as more power flowed into the system. She stared at her computer screen, watching as the simulation failed, again. The field isn't stable, she told Dr. Peters as he entered the lab. His eyes were as red as hers. No one on the Lazarus team was sleeping much. We can create the tear in causality, but we can't control where it leads. Peters rubbed his face. We don't need to control where. We just need to make sure it affects them and not us. Kelly stood up, her legs stiff from sitting too long. She walked to the large window overlooking the main chamber. Inside, the Lazarus prototype glowed with soft blue light. The machine was beautiful in a strange way, all curved surfaces and flowing lines. It didn't look like a weapon. It looked like art. You know why I created this technology, she said quietly. To save lives. To give doctors more time to treat the worst injuries. The theory was simple. Create a bubble where time moved slower, where a dying patient could wait days instead of minutes for help. And now it will save everyone, Peters replied. Will it? Kelly turned to face him. The Lazarus effect doesn't just slow time. In our tests, it created temporal paradoxes. Small ones, but still. We're not just building a weapon. We're breaking the rules of reality. Before Peters could answer, General Martinez entered the room. He carried a tablet showing satellite images. The Krellnor have moved 2 of their vessels into low Earth orbit, he said without greeting. They're scanning our major cities, military bases, power plants. Making targets, Peters said. Martinez nodded. We're down to 5 days. Please tell me you have good news. Kelly returned to her computer. We need to modify our approach. Instead of one large field, we need 3 smaller synchronized fields, a triangle of effect. Can you make that work? Martinez asked. Maybe, but we'll need to position the generators perfectly. One in the Arctic, one in the deepest part of the Pacific, one beneath the Sahara. That's 3 different continents, Martinez said. If we're going to unmake an enemy from existence, Kelly replied, we need to catch them in a perfect geometric trap. In orbit, Commander Ross watched as the Krelnor vessels moved into new positions. Their ships were unlike anything humans had built, organic-looking, with curves and bumps that seemed random but somehow graceful, beautiful, and terrifying. They're scanning us, reported Paul Clark from his station. Energy signatures unlike anything I've seen before. Ross checked the special sensors she'd been ordered to monitor. The aliens weren't just scanning Earth. They were probing it with energies that made her instruments spike wildly. Send the data to Houston, she ordered, and prepare the emergency escape pod. If things go bad, I want you and the science team ready to return to Earth. Clark looked up in surprise. What about you? Ross smiled thinly. Someone needs to keep watching them. In Washington, President Powell met with her cabinet in the bunker beneath the White House. The room was tense, faces grim. The public address, bought us some time, said the Secretary of State. But people are scared. The Krelnor ships are visible in the night sky now. We can't hide this. We don't need to hide it, Powell said. We just need 3 more days. She turned to the large screen showing a map of Earth. 3 points glowed on its surface. One in the Arctic Ocean, one near the island of Guam, and one in the Sahara Desert. The deployment teams are en route, Defense Secretary Morris reported. The Arctic team is already in position. The submarine USS Neptune will reach the Mariana Trench in 14 hours. The Sahara team needs 20 more hours. And the Krelnor? Powell asked, still in holding pattern. Their scans continue. We believe they're mapping our defenses before they attack. Powell nodded. Then we continue as planned. All conventional forces remain on high alert. Make it look like we're preparing for a fight. The submarine USS Neptune cut through the dark Pacific waters, diving deeper than any vessel was designed to go. Captain Andrew Miller felt the hull groan around him. Depth, 7,000 meters, reported his first officer. Pressure hull is holding, but we're at 90% of maximum tolerance. Miller nodded. The Neptune had been specially modified for this mission, reinforced to withstand depths that would crush any normal submarine. In the cargo hold, the Lazarus field generator sat secure in its cradle. Another 1,000 meters, Miller said. Then we hold position. The special radio crackled. Neptune, this is Control, status report. On track, Miller replied. We'll reach deployment depth in 30 minutes. Understood. Be advised, Krelnor vessels have increased scanning activity. Exercise extreme caution. In the Sahara, a team of engineers worked in the remote desert night. They had arrived by stealth helicopter, carrying equipment in unmarked crates. The hole they dug was already 50 meters deep. How much further? Asked Susan Reed, the team leader. Another 50 meters, replied Jeff Turner, checking his instruments. Then we install the generator and get out. Extraction team arrives at dawn. Reed wiped sweat from her forehead. Even at night, the desert was hot. Any news from the other teams? Arctic is in position. Neptune is nearly there. Turner paused. Have you heard the rumors about what these things actually do? Reed continued working. I know only what I need to know. That's how we stay alive. In Nevada, Dr. Kelly made a breakthrough. She called Peters and Martinez to her computer immediately. I found a way to synchronize the fields, she said, her excitement breaking through her exhaustion. By using Earth's magnetic field as a carrier wave, we can ensure perfect timing between the 3 generators. And the effect? Peters asked. Kelly pulled up a simulation. It showed 3 points on a globe, each emitting a wave of energy. Where the waves met, reality itself seemed to fold. The Lazarus effect will create a cascading temporal paradox, she explained. Anything caught in it will experience a causality break. They won't be destroyed. They'll simply never have been. How certain are you this will work? Martinez asked. Kelly hesitated. The math gives us a 60% chance of success, up from 23% yesterday. And the side effects? Unknown, Kelly admitted, but contained to the target area. Earth should be safe. Should be, Martinez repeated. In orbit, Ross received an encrypted message from Houston. It contained only 3 words. Prepare for impossible. She didn't know what it meant, but her orders were clear. The Artemis station needed to record everything that happened in 4 days' time, using every instrument available. Outside her window, the Krell-Nor mothership turned slowly in the void. Its surface rippled with strange lights, patterns that hurt her eyes if she looked too long. From the mothership, a small probe launched toward Earth. It streaked through the atmosphere, heading for the Pacific Ocean. At Pearl Harbor Naval Base, sirens wailed as radar tracked the incoming object. Fighter jets scrambled, missiles locked, but the probe moved too fast. It struck an uninhabited island 200 miles south of Hawaii. The energy released vaporized the entire island, leaving a steaming crater 2 miles wide and half a mile deep. The message was clear. A demonstration of power, a taste of what was to come. In the White House bunker, President Powell watched the live satellite feed of the destroyed island. Her face showed no emotion, but her hands gripped the edge of the table until her knuckles turned white. How many more days? She asked. 3, Morris replied. All 3 generators will be in position in 36 hours. After that, we need 12 hours for power-up and synchronization. Powell nodded. Then we wait and pray this works, because if it doesn't, that island is just the beginning. News of the destroyed island spread across the world. People looked to the sky with fear, watching the alien ships that now appeared as bright stars even in daylight. Churches filled with those seeking comfort. Others fled to the countryside, hoping distance from cities might save them. In Nevada, Dr. Kelly hadn't left the facility in days. She moved between her computer station and the prototype generator, checking and rechecking her calculations. The fate of humanity rested on her theory being correct. All 3 generators are now in position, Peters told her as he entered the control room. Arctic team reports successful installation. Neptune has placed their unit at the bottom of the Mariana Trench. Sahara team completed their work an hour ago. Kelly nodded, too tired for words. Her screen showed 3 blinking dots on a map of Earth, a perfect triangle. After years of theoretical work, her creation would either save humanity or prove a costly failure. Peters placed a cup of coffee beside her. When did you last sleep? Sleep can wait, she replied. The Krell-Nor won't. On her screen, a simulation showed the 3 generators creating overlapping fields. In the center, where all 3 fields merged, the laws of physics bent and broke. That was where the alien fleet would be caught when the system activated. We need to run a small-scale test, she said suddenly. Something to prove the principle. Peters frowned. We don't have time for failure, Kelly interrupted. Give me 6 hours and a satellite uplink to the Arctic generator. Just a 5% power test. Martinez, who had been listening from the doorway, stepped forward. 6 hours, not 1 minute more. In the White House Situation Room, Admiral Harris studied the latest satellite images of the Krell-Nor fleet. Their ships had formed a new pattern, spreading out to cover the entire planet. They're positioning for global strikes, he told President Powell. Each of their small vessels could take out a major city. The larger ships could destroy entire regions. Powell's face remained calm, though her eyes showed her worry. How long until the Lazarus system is ready? Dr. Kelly has requested a small-scale test, Harris replied. After that, 12 hours for full power-up and synchronization. If all goes well, we can activate in 24 hours, 1 day before the Krell-Nor deadline. And if it fails? Harris didn't answer. He didn't need to. Powell turned to her communications director. Prepare another address to the nation. People deserve to know we're doing everything possible. In the Arctic, a small research station sat upon the thick ice. Inside, a team of engineers and scientists monitored the Lazarus generator, buried 50 meters below in a quickly dug shaft. We have orders for a test run, said Nancy Lloyd, the team leader. 5% power for 30 seconds. Powering up, replied Ian Wilson, his hands moving across the control panel. Generator response is normal. Field forming. Above them, the northern lights shimmered more brightly than usual as the generator pulled energy from Earth's magnetic field. The air itself seemed to thicken. Lloyd spoke into the secure radio. Nevada, this is Arctic Team. Test is running now. In orbit, Commander Ross noticed something strange. The sensors on the Artemis station detected an energy surge from Earth's North Pole. It was unlike anything in their records. What is that? Asked Clark, adjusting his instruments. It's interfering with our gravitational sensors. Before Ross could answer, a warning alarm sounded. Krell-Nor ship is changing course, she announced. One of their scout vessels is moving toward the Arctic. She hit the emergency communications button. Houston, we have a situation. The aliens are showing interest in the Arctic region. Repeat, alien scout vessel heading toward Earth's North Pole. In the Nevada Control Center, Kelly received the Arctic test data and the warning about the alien scout ship almost simultaneously. It worked, she said, studying the readings. The field formed exactly as predicted, small but stable. And now they know something's happening, Martinez said grimly. The scout ship is investigating. Kelly turned to him. Then we need to move up the timetable. If they discover any of the generators... Agreed, Martinez interrupted. I'll inform the president. Peters looked at the main display. Can we be ready in 12 hours? Kelly nodded. We'll have to be. Under the Pacific Ocean, Captain Miller received new orders. The Neptune would remain at maximum depth, maintaining position above the Lazarus generator despite the dangerous pressure on the hull. Power-up sequence will begin in 6 hours, Miller told his crew. Once started, we cannot move until the sequence completes or the mission fails. His first officer looked concerned. The hull integrity is already at risk, sir. Staying at this depth for another 18 hours is necessary. Miller finished firmly. This is what the Neptune was modified for. This is why we're here. Orbit. The Krell-Nor scout ship approached the Arctic Circle. From the Artemis station, Ross and her crew watched as it descended into Earth's atmosphere, its hull glowing red with entry heat. They're scanning the area, Clark reported. Focusing on the energy signature we detected. Ross's hands tightened on the edge of her console. How long until they find the generator? At their current search pattern, less than 2 hours. Ross made a decision. Arm the orbital defense satellites. Get me direct contact with Space Command. Clark stared at her. Commander, those satellites are for debris protection. They're not weapons. They are now, Ross replied. We need to buy time. In the Sahara, the generator team received urgent orders. They needed to begin power-up immediately, ahead of schedule. What about synchronization? Asked Jeff Turner. We're supposed to start at exactly the same time as the others. Susan Reed checked her instructions again. New plan. We start first, Arctic second, Neptune third. Dr. Kelly has adjusted the field parameters to compensate. As night fell across the desert, the buried generator began to hum. Sand vibrated around the site, flowing into strange patterns as the laws of physics began to bend. In Nevada, Kelly worked frantically to adjust the Lazarus protocol. Starting the generators at different times created new variables, new risks. The field overlap needs to be perfect, she told Peters. If the timing is off by even a millisecond, the effect could spread beyond the target area. Could it reach Earth? Peters asked. Kelly's silence was answer enough. President Powell addressed the nation again. Her words were carefully chosen, revealing nothing about the Lazarus Project while preparing people for what might come. Throughout history, humanity has faced threats that seemed insurmountable, she said, looking directly into the camera. Yet, we have always found a way to survive, to adapt, to overcome. Tomorrow will test us as never before. But I promise you this: humanity will not surrender. We will not go quietly, and we will not fail. In the Arctic, the research team watched their radar with growing dread. The Krell-Nor scout ship was closing in, its search pattern tightening around their location. "They'll be here in less than an hour," Lloyd said into the secure radio. "We're beginning power-up now." The generator beneath the ice roared to life. The northern lights above twisted into impossible shapes as reality itself began to warp. The scout ship accelerated suddenly, diving toward the source of the energy. In space, Ross gave the order. The debris defense satellites, designed to destroy space junk with targeted lasers, fired upon the Krellnor scout ship. Their beams were weak compared to alien technology, but they struck with perfect precision, hitting the ship's sensors. The scout ship veered off course, temporarily blinded. The Artemis had bought the Arctic team precious time, but at a cost. The main Krellnor fleet now turned its attention to the space station. "They've seen us," Clark said, his voice tight with fear. "5 ships are changing course, heading this way." Ross nodded calmly. "Evacuation protocol. All non-essential personnel to the escape pods. We've done our part. Now we give the Lazarus Project the time it needs." As escape pods launched from the Artemis, the Krellnor mothership released a signal. Through their universal translators, humans heard the final ultimatum. "Your resistance is noted. Your surrender is no longer acceptable. Planetary cleansing. Will begin in 12 hours. In Nevada." Kelly looked up at Peters, her face pale but determined. "Then we have 11 hours to do the impossible." The world held its breath as the 11-hour countdown began. Across the globe, people huddled around televisions and radios, following what might be the final moments of human history. Military forces remained on high alert, though everyone now understood conventional weapons would make little difference against the Krellnor technology. In Nevada, the control room had become the center of humanity's last hope. Dr. Kelly hadn't moved from her station in hours, her eyes fixed on the data flowing from the 3 generators. "Sahara generator at 60% power and rising," she reported. "Field stability at acceptable levels. Arctic generator at 43% and climbing. Neptune generator beginning power-up sequence now." General Martinez paced behind, her checking his watch every few minutes. "The aliens have begun moving their fleet into attack formation. Our satellites count 27 vessels total." "Will all of them be caught in the field?" Peters asked. "If the calculations are correct, yes," Kelly replied. She pulled up a 3-dimensional map showing Earth and the positions of the Krellnor ships. A translucent dome represented the area that would be affected by the Lazarus field. The mothership is at the center. The rest orbit around it. All should be within range. In the Arctic, the research station shook as the generator beneath the ice reached 70% power. The air itself seemed to vibrate, making it hard to breathe. Outside, the ice had begun to crack in strange geometric patterns. "Nevada, this is Arctic team." Nancy Lloyd spoke into the radio, having to shout over the noise. "Generator is becoming unstable. We're seeing reality distortions in a 500-meter radius." She looked at her team. Their faces showed fear, but no one moved from their posts. They all understood what was at stake. "Keep it running," came Kelly's voice through the radio. "The effect is expected. The field needs to reach 80% before full stabilization occurs." Lloyd nodded, though Kelly couldn't see her. "Understood. We'll hold as long as necessary." In the Pacific depths, the submarine Neptune groaned as its hull was tested beyond design limits. The Lazarus generator in the Mariana Trench below them pulsed with energy, creating currents that pushed against the submarine with increasing force. "Hull integrity at 65%, reported the first officer. "If we stay here much longer, we risk implosion." Captain Miller wiped sweat from his forehead. The air systems were struggling as power was diverted to maintain the submarine's position above the generator. "We hold," he said firmly. "How's the generator output?" 55% and rising steadily. Estimated time to full power is 3 hours, 17 minutes. Miller did the math in his head. That would put them dangerously close to the aliens' deadline for attack. Too close. In the White House bunker, President Powell received regular updates from the Lazarus team. Admiral Harris stood by her side, his face grim. "The Krellnor have changed their communications," he reported. They're using a new frequency our translators can't fully decode, but the pattern suggests they're coordinating an attack. How long? Powell asked. Their deadline was 12 hours. But given their movements, I'd estimate they'll strike in less than 5. Powell closed her eyes briefly. And the Lazarus Project? Dr. Kelly estimates full power and synchronization in 4 hours. 30 minutes, Harris paused. It's going to be close, Madam President. In orbit, the Artemis space station was now surrounded by 5 Krell-Nor vessels. Commander Ross had ordered most of her crew to the escape pods, keeping only a skeleton team to maintain. Critical systems, they're scanning us, Clark reported from his station. Trying to determine if we're a threat. Ross nodded. Keep passive systems only. No active scanning. Commander? Clark's voice changed, becoming urgent. One of their ships is charging weapons. Ross made an instant decision. Evacuate now. All remaining personnel to escape pods. That's an order. As the last of her crew rushed to the escape pods, Ross remained at her station. Someone needed to ensure the aliens focused on the Artemis rather than following the pods back to Earth, or worse, detecting the Lazarus generators. In Nevada, a new alert sounded. Kelly looked up from her screens in alarm. We're picking up massive energy buildups from the Krell-Nor fleet, she said. They're preparing to attack early. Martinez grabbed the secure phone. We need to speed up the timetable. How soon can the system be ready? Kelly shook her head. We can't rush this. The fields need to form properly or the effect won't work. Worse, it could backfire. The aliens aren't going to wait, Martinez insisted. Neither is physics, Kelly shot back. 4 hours is the absolute minimum. Any faster, and we risk destroying ourselves instead of them. In space, a beam of energy lanced out from one of the Krell-Nor ships, striking the Artemis station. The station shuddered but held together. Ross gripped her console as systems failed around her. Still here, she whispered, watching as the last escape pod successfully launched toward Earth. The alien seemed focused on the station, ignoring the small pods. Ross activated the emergency transponder, broadcasting on all frequencies. This is Commander Olivia Ross of the Artemis. I am the last human aboard. To the Krell-Nor fleet, your conflict is with me, not the evacuation pods. There was no response, but the alien vessels maintained their position around the damaged station. In the Sahara, the generator reached 85% power. The field had stabilized, creating a dome of distorted reality 5 kilometers wide. Sand within the effect zone rose and fell in impossible waves. Time itself seemed to flow differently inside the dome. Susan Reed observed from the edge of the effect. Her team had moved to a safe distance, monitoring remotely. Nevada Sahara generator is stable at 85%, she reported. Ready for synchronization whenever you give the word. In the depths of the Pacific, the Neptune situation had become critical. The hull breaches had begun, seawater spraying into multiple compartments. Emergency bulkheads had sealed, trapping some crew members in flooded sections. Generator at 78%, reported the sonar officer, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. Holding position is no longer possible, Captain. We're taking on too much water. Miller made the hardest decision of his career. Activate the generator's autonomous mode. Prepare to abandon ship. The officer stared at him. Sir, the escape pods aren't rated for this depth. I know, Miller said quietly. But we've done our part. The generator will reach full power on its own now. In Nevada, Kelly received the distress call from the Neptune. Her face showed no emotion as she relayed the news to Martinez and Peters. The submarine is failing. They've set the generator to autonomous mode and are attempting to evacuate. Will the generator maintain its position? Martinez asked. It's anchored to the seafloor, Kelly replied. It should hold. Peters placed a hand on her shoulder. Those men and women knew the risks. That doesn't make it easier, Kelly whispered, and her screens the countdown continued. 3 hours until full power across all generators. But new alerts showed the Krell-Nor fleet moving into final attack positions. Their deadline had clearly changed. In orbit, Ross watched as a second energy beam struck the Artemis. Life support, Failed completely. She had minutes of air left at most. Still here, she repeated into her transmitter. Still watching you. Her sensors showed something new. Energy building within the alien mothership. Something massive. Something world-ending. With her final conscious act, Ross sent one last message to Earth. They're firing now. God help us all. In Nevada, Kelly. Received Ross's final transmission. She looked up at the others, her face pale. We're out of time. Dr. Kelly's fingers flew across her keyboard, entering new commands faster than she ever had before. Around her, the control room erupted into controlled chaos as technicians and military personnel rushed to respond to the crisis. The Krell Nor mothership is powering up some kind of weapon, Peters said, his voice tight with tension. Satellite data suggests it's targeting multiple major cities simultaneously. Kelly didn't look up from her screen. We need to activate now. We can't wait for full power. Will it work? Martinez demanded. I don't know, Kelly admitted. The generators are at 78, 85, and 83%. The minimum safe level for synchronization was 90. But we have no choice. President Powell's voice came through the secure line. Dr. Kelly, this is the President. You have my authorization to activate the Lazarus Protocol immediately. Kelly took a deep breath, then pressed her palm against the biometric scanner. Initiating emergency synchronization. God help us all. In the Arctic, the ice shook violently as the generator pushed beyond safe limits. Nancy Lloyd and her team had retreated to their emergency shelter a kilometer away, watching as reality itself seemed to bend and twist around the generator site. The northern lights had formed impossible patterns, spiraling down toward the ground like a tornado of color. Nevada, this is Arctic. Generator responding to synchronization command. Field expanding rapidly. In the Sahara, Susan Reed watched a similar phenomenon. The sand around the generator site had risen into a perfect dome, floating in midair as if gravity had been locally reversed. The air shimmered with heat that had nothing to do with the desert sun. Sahara generator synchronized. Field expansion at 120% of projected rate. In the Pacific depths, the automated systems of the generator responded to the remote commands. The Neptune was gone, its hull finally crushed by the immense pressure. The escape pods carrying the surviving crew members fought their way toward the surface, their occupants unaware that the final phase had begun. Around the generator at the bottom of the Mariana Trench, water behaved like no liquid should, forming perfect geometric shapes flowing upward in defiance of physics, changing color as light itself was altered by the growing field. In Nevada, Kelly watched the data streams from all three sites. Field convergence in 60 seconds. Brace for possible temporal distortion effects. Martinez turned to the room. Everyone, prepare for possible reality shift. No matter what you see or feel, remain at your stations. In orbit, the Krell Nor mothership glowed with gathering energy. Its weapon, powerful enough to devastate continents, was nearly ready to fire. Around it, the rest of the fleet moved into optimal firing positions, targeting Earth's major population centers. The Artemis space station drifted silently. Damaged, beyond repair, its lone occupant now still, but its sensors continued to function, recording everything for whatever future might exist after the next few minutes. In the White House bunker, President Powell stood straight-backed as she watched the satellite feed of the alien fleet. Admiral Harris stood beside her, both of them calm in the face of possible extinction. If this doesn't work, Powell said quietly, I want the historical record to show that humanity fought until the end, that we never surrendered. It will work, Harris replied, though he had no way to know if that was true. Around the world, people looked up at the sky, many seeing the unusual lights forming in the upper atmosphere as the Lazarus fields began to expand beyond Earth's surface. Some prayed, some held loved ones, but few panicked. Humanity faced its possible end with dignity. In Nevada, Kelly's screens showed the three fields expanding, growing toward each other like bubbles rising through water. Field convergence in 15 seconds. 14. 13. The countdown continued as the room fell silent. Everyone present understood. They were witnessing something unprecedented in human history, an attempt to change the very laws of reality itself. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Convergence. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then every electronic device in the facility flickered. The lights dimmed. Computer screens went black, then returned showing impossible data, numbers and symbols that shouldn't exist. "What's happening?" Martinez demanded. Kelly stared at her screens in wonder. The fields have merged. The effect is propagating outward, reaching orbital distance now. Above Earth, something impossible occurred. The space around the Krell-Nor fleet began to distort, not as if viewed through a lens or mirage, but as if reality itself had decided the laws of physics were merely suggestions. In the mothership, the Krell-Nor commander watched in growing alarm as his instruments showed readings that couldn't be explained. "They're targeting our ships with some primitive gravitational weapon," he broadcast to his fleet. "Prepare countermeasures immediately." The transmission ended mid-word. Not because it was cut off, but because from the perspective of the universe, the commander had never existed to speak those words. One by one, the Krell-Nor ships didn't explode or break apart or vanish in a flash of light. They simply became inconsistent with reality, as if the universe had decided they were a mistake and quietly erased them from existence. In Nevada, Kelly watched the sensor data with wide eyes. "It's working. The Lazarus effect is creating a causality paradox centered on the Krell-Nor fleet." "What does that mean in plain English?" Martinez asked. Peters answered, his voice filled with awe. "It means we're not destroying them. We're making it so they never existed in the first place." On screens around the world, satellite images showed a strange sight: the alien ships becoming transparent, then seemingly folding in on themselves before disappearing entirely, not with violence or energy release, but with the quiet simplicity of an error being corrected. In the White House bunker, cheers erupted as confirmation came through. "All 27 Krell-Nor vessels have been affected by the Lazarus field," reported a technician. "No traces remain in orbit." Powell closed her eyes briefly. "Any effect on Earth or our satellites?" "None detected, Madam President. The field was precisely targeted." 2 weeks later, humanity began to understand the consequences of what they had done. Dr. Kelly led a team of scientists studying the after effects of the Lazarus Protocol. What they found both fascinated and concerned them. "We didn't just remove the Krell-Nor from existence," she explained to President Powell in a private briefing. "We created ripples through space-time. The universe is adjusting to the paradox we created." "Adjusting how?" Powell asked. "People remember events slightly differently. Historical records show subtle changes. And we're seeing technological advances appearing in research facilities worldwide, breakthroughs that seem to come from nowhere." Admiral Harris, now promoted to chairman of the Joint Chiefs, studied the report with concern. "Are we in danger?" "Not immediately," Kelly replied. "But we've changed something fundamental. The universe doesn't like paradoxes. It's compensating in ways we're only beginning to understand." Most concerning were the strange signals now being detected from deep space, patterns that suggested other civilizations had noticed what happened. Some appeared to be transmissions of fear, others of curiosity, and some perhaps of warning. As humanity rebuilt the Artemis station and established a new department to monitor for future threats, Kelly and Peters continued their work on the Lazarus technology, but with new safeguards, new limits. "We were lucky," Kelly told Peters as they watched the sunset from a hilltop near the Nevada facility. "We could have unmade ourselves just as easily." Peters nodded. "They came expecting to find a primitive species they could conquer. Instead, they forced us to become something new." "That's what they never understood about humans," Kelly replied. "We don't just fight back. We evolve." As night fell across a world forever changed, humanity looked to the stars with new eyes. No longer isolated, no longer unprepared, but known throughout the galaxy as the species that did the impossible.